Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome to today's episode of The Dialogue. So excited. Just got off a refreshing weekend, and I'm ready to power punch the enemy with this revelation that I have for you. As you know, our mantra is that we're healing souls one conversation at a time. So it is my hope that as I give you this information or insight that the Holy Spirit has landed on me or breathed into my spirit, that you take it, you go talk to someone else about it, you guys articulate what your understanding is, come to some type of agreement, and it helps you to grow because you're applying biblical spiritual principles to your life, and you should definitely be seeing results as well as bearing fruit. As you know, our mantra on this show is that we're healing souls one conversation at a time. So I don't want to belabor the point. Let's get straight into the content. So when I woke up a couple moments ago, the words that came to my spirit were emotional intelligence. And so let me just go ahead and read a description of actually what it means. It says emotional intelligence, or EI, is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions as well as the emotions of others. It also says that these are components of self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, relationship management, so on and so forth. And then it goes on to give for competencies, which was what we talked about. But basically, it also says that it is about motivation, empathy, and social skills. So let me just say this. I firmly believe that as a qualified mental health specialist, someone that deals with people that have issues with chemical dependency, which means that they're on drugs and alcohol, they have an addiction to these substances. I have come to understand that a lot of people make decisions out of their emotions, which means when a person feels a certain type of way about something, they will let their emotions dictate how they should behave with the words that they're speaking, their disposition towards the situation. And so when I looked up the word emotions, it said a mental or physical state that are caused by neurological changes. They are complex and can range in feelings of behaviors that are usually directed at a specific person, thing, or situation. Emotions are often accompanied by sociological and behavioral changes in the body. So we have to understand in ourselves how we experience emotions, how we identify emotions, how emotions impact our lives, and how to manage them. And of course, some of you guys know that the emotions can range from anger, fear, sadness, disappointment, happiness, worry, doubt, nervousness, and anxiety. And wow, that's actually really interesting because I didn't even notice that you could put nervousness in emotions, because I'm the type of person, if I do feel nervous about something, I could actually feel it in my body. Like I'll feel it in my stomach. Like literally my nerves will start to feel extremely awkward. But I did not know that that was classified as an emotion. So that's actually good to know that. So there are 27 basic emotions. Wow, I didn't know that either. So a lot of times when you're feeling something, maybe it's joy, maybe it's arousal, appreciation, awkwardness, boredom, calmness, confusion, so on and so forth. These are actually emotions because it's coming from a psychological, which is your mental, it's coming from your mental space. But I personally feel as though emotional intelligence is something that is evaded. It's a conversation that should be talked about more often, and we should be, as we're maturing, able to handle our emotions. But I'm also understanding that if you were a kid and you never had someone to help you process through your emotions or ask you how you feel or what's going on or why do you think this way and behave this way, you are not going to be someone that is able to ground yourself in emotional intelligence, which means that you may have erratic behavior. You may be angry, but then you may behave in a way that other people are able to see that you're angry, meaning that you're angry inside, but you can't contain it. You can't hold yourself together. You explode, you cuss people out, and all different types of things, meaning that your emotions are actually controlling your actions. And so lately I've been talking about coming to a place of peace, how important it is to come to a place of peace, how important it is to actually ground yourself in the foundation from peace, because Being in a place of peace helps you to make better decisions. You ever notice when you're mad at somebody, you be like, okay, I'm not going to talk to them for a couple days, but you actually need to talk to them because you're probably husband and wife and you need to still get things done. You're letting your emotions dictate how you communicate with people, which means it impacts your social skills, your interpersonal skills, your ability to bond with other people. And emotions can do that. I mean, we've seen people kill people on impulse just because of their emotions. We've seen people do things that they regretted because of their emotions. We've seen people mishandle opportunities because of their emotions. We've seen people do things that they're like, man, if I was a little bit older and I had a little bit more knowledge, I wouldn't have done that. We've seen people get married out of emotions. We've seen people start businesses and companies and diets and all things out of emotions because they feel like it, right? Maybe at that moment you're feeling good, you're feeling happy, you're feeling like, wow, this is what is making me have interest or amusement, right? But what do you do when that emotion starts to fade away? What do you do when it's no longer there? Because it also says that it deals into the component of motivation as well as empathy. So if you are the type of person where you constantly need a rush or to feel excited about something in your emotions, when you're having a bad day or a sad day or a day where you just literally are out of yourself, meaning something has happened to jolt you and your emotions are not stable, this can affect your life in traumatic ways, right? So if you're running a business and people are relying on you to bring content every day, right? They're relying on you to tell them your message every day. And then you get to a point in your life where maybe the seasons change. You're going through seasonal depression because we do know that that's true. Also because nowadays it's getting dark at 5 p.m., 5 p.m. at the latest, 5:15, 5:30, right? So we're only getting a certain amount of sunlight, right? So that can affect your emotions, right? If you are not emotionally intelligent, a lot of times it can ruin things that God is trying to bring into your life. This is why I believe that it is so important to have peace. Peace is like ground zero. It's like foundation, meaning you're not elevated in you know, too elevated in the way that you're perceiving things, or you're not in a downslope as well. So we as people want to strive and aim for balance, right? So the interesting part that I love about this is that it gives all these examples about um, emotions, right? But one of the ones that really stuck out to me is that not only how we manage emotions of ourselves, but also emotions of other people. So the interesting part is that, you know, I feel as though as a counselor that I do have a lot of empathy for people. But when it comes to me understanding their emotions, I'm definitely there with them. But I want to get to the point where, and I have done this before in my sessions, I have actually been able to press people past where they're feeling at that current moment, right? If I get on a session with someone and they're extremely sad or they're feeling extremely depressed or they just feel like life is not working out, I have been able to talk to them and pull them back off the ledge, right? But it's been through humor, it's been through jokes, it's been through me explaining to them the word of God, right? But at that moment, that may be temporary. They get that high at that moment. It's literally like someone that may be doing drugs. They get the high, but then it wears off and then they find themselves right back in the slow. How do we as people ground ourselves in our emotions so that it can be permanent? And to me and my understanding, that takes time. It, like it said, it's self-awareness, knowing yourself. You have to know the things that trigger you, know the things that make you mad, know the things even that make you happy, right? Because that is what intelligence is all about. You're mastering knowing something, you have intel about it, which ultimately means that you have to be able to sit with yourself. You have to be able to sit with yourself to know yourself, right? So I want to see how can we ground ourselves in emotional intelligence, because in my understanding, if you don't ground yourself in emotional intelligence, it's also going to be hard to have relationships that are healthy, because oftentimes we can bond with people for where we are at that moment, meaning they're a little erratic in their behavior. They're a little chaotic how they deal with people. They don't know how to just quiet themselves. They have a strong clap back. It's a lot of ignorance coming from them. And oftentimes, the best response for situations like that is no response, because we know that there is a time and there's a place to deal with many aspects of life. However, if you're in a wrestling match with words with someone and their whole thing is to get you into in a moment, right, that can destroy a lifetime. Say, for instance, two people are arguing and this person, they can't control themselves or control their behavior. And so they're pursuing you to try to fight with you or whatever, right? Emotionally, it may be wise not to say anything. It may be wise not to even engage, because oftentimes you can pull yourself into something that can destroy your life. So, if you're dealing with people, and this is just a little negative wisdom because I'm learning this as well. Sometimes it's not always about the clap back or getting smart or arguing with someone, because at that moment, unfortunately, you become just like that person. Whether they're trying to prove a point in an ignorant stance or to make you feel less than, ultimately, when you go back and forth with someone, arguing with somebody, your voices get elevated, nobody's listening to each other. Sometimes that is people's whole intent for your life, literally to disturb your peace because they themselves don't have it. So what you have to do is you have to take a step back. You have to assess and reevaluate, okay, what is causing me to argue with this person? What is causing me to feel like I hate them? And because I hate them, it's causing me to demean them in our conversations, so we're not even able to communicate. That is self-awareness. You're figuring out, okay, what don't you like? What's making you uncomfortable? What's agitating or irritating you, and making you have certain responses that is destroying your peace. Okay, because emotional intelligence is also about preservation. Okay, I don't need to say that right now because that's not going to end up too well, because it also said knowing the other person. I feel as though we live in a society right now where everything is me, 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 me. So we're not actually practicing and harnessing in humility to consider another person, right? And so when we think about life, when we think about the beauty of life and things like that, like when it comes to having relationships with people, and I said this before, sometimes people relate because of their inability to have emotional intelligence, which means they're just literally crazy as a Betsy bug, which means that they're just off their rocker, right? We don't necessarily want to bond with those people. We don't necessarily want to have those type of tight connections with people, because it can lead you down a path where you're literally in a place that you don't want to be in mentally and emotionally, like literally mentally and emotionally disturbed, right? So I wanted to get some insight in regards to how to ground yourself, because this is what life is all about, right? Grounding yourself, whether it's, okay, I have to work today, I don't feel like it, I'm irritated, right? Ground yourself and knowing, okay, I have things to do, I have bills that I need to take care of, I have goals that I want to pursue, right? And that also working is a way of building diligence and discipline, right? So not leaning to your emotions, but grounding yourself in a different place and state so that you can continue in the things that you need to do in order to have fulfillment of life, right? So it says to ground yourself in emotional intelligence means focus on developing self-awareness by recognizing your own emotions, practicing mindful breathing, using compassionate self-talk, actively listening to others. And I think that's very good, because an example that I gave where two people arguing back and forth, we know at a certain interval they're not listening, they're not even active listening to each other. It is literally just to get out what that person needs to say, and that's it, okay? And it says employing empathy to understand their perspective, all while actively managing impulses and reactions to situations. And I heard this a while ago, that you are not to react but respond, right? So if you think about reacting, right, someone gives you something, they act a certain type of way towards you, they're ignorant towards you, they cut you off when you're supposed to be turning a corner, right? They don't get your order right. You react, which means the way that they acted towards you, you're reacting back towards them. But you want to respond, which means that you're not controlled by the stimulus or stimuli from that person. You're not being anchored into their ignorance or to them being rude or anything like that. You are responding, which is actually healthier, right? All of this while you're actively managing your own reactions to your situations. So you have to be able to harness in and understand, meaning, and it can be difficult when someone's talking to you or yelling at you and calling you names and things like that, like to know how should I respond to this, right? And so oftentimes, no response is the best response. You'll notice a lot of times that people are erratic and have issues like mentally. They need you to respond in an ignorant way. It does something for them. It puts them in a place of happiness to know sometimes they've disturbed somebody else's peace. But remember what I said, this is about managing your emotions. And hopefully, as you're managing your emotions, that person will catch fire like, okay, maybe I need to sit down and be quiet because they're not listening to me, right? One of the most interesting things that I have found is that if I'm talking to someone that is extremely erratic in their behavior, when you tell them to calm down or chill out, you could tell that there's something going on there because they will literally start yelling, I am calm, I am chilled out, but they're literally not. To me, that person is past the phase or stage of not only just active listening, but also desiring to resolve or respond in a healthy way. With those situations, oftentimes it is literally just best to walk away. You know, when you're managing your emotions, sometimes it is good to disconnect from people. It is good to get healthy space, meaning mentally, okay, I can't do this right now. I don't want to talk about this right now. Okay, this is always your disposition. Anytime I say anything to you, you want to yell, you want to argue, you want to cuss. And a lot of times it's like, I'm not in that place. So you'll learn as you manage your emotions, right? Because we know that some people can be inwardly insane, meaning you don't see it until it's a situation that presses their button so bad that it literally drives them crazy, and there's no bringing them back. There's no pulling them back to the other side, right? Everybody is able to hide who they are until a situation presses them past the capacity of who they've lied about who they are. Meaning, you're in a relationship with a woman and she tells you, oh, I can handle this and this is fine and we're good, right? And the next thing you notice that when everything is out of her control, she's literally losing her mind, right? Every situation is going to come to test and try a person. This is why I believe that God does allow us to suffer, because he's testing who we are in that situation. He's proving who we are in that situation. So a lot of times you have to pay attention not to what people say, right? To the response to the stimuli or situation that is taking place. That's also another component of emotional intelligence. You don't only need to be able to manage your emotions. And I don't mean manage another person as in control them. Sometimes you can reel a person back from the deep end and sometimes you simply can't. Sometimes people have anchored into the fact they're gonna be hateful because these are emotions, right? They're gonna be hateful. They're gonna be resentful. They're gonna make you pay. They're gonna recompense you for the pain that you caused. That's a dangerous spot to be in, right? When someone's emotions is so on fire, right? Because we know there can be fire and there can be cool. Cool is like joy, happiness, peace. Fire is like anger, rage. You know, it can even lead to violence, right? Because remember it said your feelings go into your behavior. Emotional intelligence is also realizing when you've done everything that you can in a situation to help manage your emotions in another person and when it's best to walk away. And I think that's beautiful when people can master that, right? Because we know a lot of times people have survivor's guilt and remorse. They felt bad that they couldn't help that person get back to the place that they needed to be because maybe they were the cause of that person being who they are, right? Now, I love this content and this conversation because it makes other people responsible as well. Like someone does something to me, right? Very, very bad. Irresponsible emotional, and I'm not even going to say intelligence, this irresponsible emotions caused me to go back and flip out on that person, right? But it was my actions. I'm responsible for my actions, right? Do you know a lot of people don't want to even take accountability for their actions. Therefore, you can't take accountability for your behaviors. If you're the type of person that for some reason you're very gentle, but you're always around people that explode, extremely negative, just don't even have full understanding or context about situations before they explode, those people are not emotionally intelligent. And so as you stay around people, we are magnets of knowledge, right? Even if it's bad knowledge, like, or wisdom. You could be around somebody and they explode and they're nuts and they're crazy. So then you're learning that behavior. I remember one time I looked back and observed myself like, wow, I didn't start acting like this until these specific instances and this specific people that I was around, right? This is why it says bad manners corrupt good behavior. You're around people with bad mannerisms, bad behavior. After a while, that's going to seep into your spirit, because we are spirit. We are spirit. We have flesh. We have a body. We have a soul, right? But the more that you're around people that are not emotionally intelligent, eventually, if you come into agreement or alignment and you don't start correcting or rebuking that person, you're in agreement with them. So it's like, oh, it's a pass to do it. Because you have to have a lot of self-control and a lot of self-awareness to understand there is something behind that. There is something driving that person to be like that. And oftentimes, I've noticed it's either two ends of the spectrum. Either something has happened to that person that really destroyed them and caused them to be emotionally unstable, and they literally can't help it. And there's another end of the spectrum where that person is like that because they like it. They like arguing, they like bickering, they like complaining, they love disturbing your peace, they love getting you out of your comfort zone. So these are all components of emotional awareness, or emotional intelligence, because you have to be aware. Is this person doing this to me, or are my feelings and behaviors and emotions as well as theirs like this because we need to process, we need to work on some things, or is it just over, right? Because I have had an opportunity to really sit down lately, and in my mind I was thinking about the words relation, right? And so a lot of times we think we may relate with people just because of external factors, right? Where we like the same support groups, we love the same shows, we like the same movies, we have the same keen interest in fashion. No, but when that is a component, it is a component. But when you get deeper into it, let's talk about external or internal factors, right? We relate to each other because we're both angry. We relate to each other because we both secretly despise and hate people. We relate to each other because we both were done wrong as children, and now we're on a vengeance and a vendetta to make everybody else's life hell. We relate to one another because there's simply something inside of both of us that is negative that we have not yet analyzed, and is dictating how we treat other people, but now it's seeping more into the way we relate to one another. Because emotional intelligence, and I love this word, I just love how it sounds. Emotional intelligence is the capacity and the ability to be able to assess where you are. Like, for instance, I had some recent situations that took place in my life, extremely traumatic, would never wish them on anybody. And at the time, I could not find anybody to emotionally bond with in order to be like a head for me to lay on or a place for me to cry about it. I mean, because it was very traumatic, right? But then I found myself get to a certain place that, okay, I'm good emotionally, right? And the next thing you know, I ended up talking to someone that I hadn't talked to in a long time, and they went through something similar that I went through. And I heard the Lord say, don't talk about it with them. Don't tell them, right? Couldn't understand, right? But the issue was that we were going to be trauma bonding, which means we were going to bond because of the unfortunate circumstance that took place in both our lives involving these loved ones, right? So God said, do not tell them. And I didn't tell them. And so I noticed when they would talk about it, it was like I had a fence up over my heart, guarding my heart towards the emotions, right? But it was like they were spewing their emotions on me. And so during conversations and things like that, as they would talk about the situation and circumstance, I would find myself in a place, even though I was not talking about what happened to me. So emotional intelligence said, guard your heart, right? Now, I look at the heart, it's not this heart that pumps blood. I look at it as the mind, like guard your mind, right? Because that situation that took place with me, it actually almost sent me in a place where it was just like, really wasn't feeling people. But when I noticed that, I started talking to this person, like they're there, right? But I was fighting not to get there. So emotional intelligence is also knowing and realize who you can't talk about things with and who you cannot share your emotions with. Right? If you are a person that wants to walk in mental stability and mental clarity, right? It's not always wise to share your emotions with people and your feelings about things, because they'll use that as an anchor to put it in your back, and then you'll be controlled by your emotions instead of facts about the situation. Facts bring peace. Like, okay, I know this for sure. I know that for sure. I know this took place for sure. Emotions are erratic and they're unstable. And so, what I am learning as someone that is anchoring in peace is that oftentimes people want to have you walk in your emotions because it makes you unstable. And to me, people that actually do that are themselves unstable, right? I mean, just look at it. You walk through your life and you never were an emotional person before, right? Not extremely like overly emotional. You had logic, right? You were able to think sensibly based on how you feel, but now your emotions are just out of control. When things like that happen, I look at the people that I'm around, the circumstances I'm experiencing, the environment that I may be in, and then I'll get back grounded. Like, this actually is helping me now, so thank you, Lord. But I ended up having a session with someone a while ago, right? And for some reason, I was just extremely emotional and could not stop crying. Like, it was just, I just could not stop crying. And at the moment, maybe I needed that, but I also look at it like this. When you're around emotionally stable people, they're able to help you get back grounded because they're going to help you look at things sensibly, right? If you're around people that all the time you are crying all the time, you're sad all the time, you're depressed all the time, something in you has to click like, okay, this is not normal. And then you also may be able to say, this is not who I am. I never was like this. So why am I now behaving and acting like this? That's also emotional intelligence. So we want to get to the place where we're not controlled by our emotions, like we allow ourselves to be human, right? This is the part of being human, right? And we feel them and we acknowledge them because we have to process them, but we don't want to be controlled by them. And I don't want anybody in my life that is trying to control me through my emotions, meaning something has happened, something has taken place in my life. It wasn't the best thing, right? And now I'm sad all the time, and I have someone calling me that wants to talk about that specific situation all the time, and I'm sad all the time. That's literally a component of misery, and misery loves company. And I'm to the place in my life where that's not what I want. I want people that want to experience happiness and joy and peace and abundance, right? Like actually literally living, doing the most simple things, just experiencing abundance of life with the most simple things. But unfortunately, if you bond with people that don't have emotional intelligence or are not striving to have peace, you're not going to live like that. So I don't want to be controlled through my negative, harmful situations, but I also don't want to be controlled in my emotions. Meaning, if I have a good thing that takes place with me or I'm happy, I don't want to call somebody and they're like, I'm just talking about how I had a good day or maybe I had a good session, and they're like, womp, womp, womp. Like they just ruin the whole moment, right? And then you're back where they are, where their frequency is, which is very low, right? Their spirit man is very low. Because you can also be controlled by that with people. So we as people have to find ourselves in a place like maybe God is allowing some of you to be in situations that cause emotional disturbance so that you can get more grounded in your emotions to understand and see, I don't have to respond to this. This is not going to kill my vibe. This is not going to ruin my day. This is not going to take over my spirit. And when that happens, you become more anchored. You become more mature because now you're able to see through the eyes of the situation that it's about fact and it's about the truth, right? And the funny part about it is with the truth, you don't even have to actually like the truth, right? Because we know some truths about things that have happened to some people like, man, I was really messed up, but it's the truth, right? And so we have to set our mind in motion to be better and healthier emotionally so that we can thrive. So on days when it's like you're just really weighed down with certain things, you can still anchor into the truth. Like, okay, I still need to do that. I still need to be nice to this person. I still need to walk away from this person. I still need to do this for me. And that's what makes a healthy mentality. Because your mentality can be made up of your emotions, right? But you don't want to live out of a place of your emotions, because emotions can be fleeting. They can change. You get around the wrong person, they definitely can change. So, very excited about today's episode. I just love that subject. I love that God breathed that into my spirit, because I actually got some insight as I spoke with you guys about it. So I thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of The Dialogue. I'm your host, Patricia. Make sure that you share this with someone and follow, so that I can continue to breathe this content out of my spirit and onto your heart, so that you feel encouraged and inspired, and God may receive the glory. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more content. Bye, guys.